At Raising Financial Freedom, we're on a mission to inspire and empower financial freedom to every parent so that they can pass it along to their children. Through engaging stories, expert advice, and actionable tips, our podcast is transforming lives and helping listeners take control of their financial futures. Your support helps us produce high-quality, impactful episodes, expand our reach to underserved communities, and keep this life-changing content free for everyone. Whether it's $5, $10, or any amount, every donation fuels our mission and makes a difference. You can donate by clicking the heart-shaped link next to the social icons or the link at the bottom of the show notes. Once again, thank you for supporting Raising Financial Freedom and joining us in creating a world where financial freedom is within everyone's reach. Together, we can make a difference.
Today on Raising Financial Freedom, we have a very good guest by the name of Diania Merriam. Diania is the founder of the EconoMe Conference, the ultimate 3-day party about money. She is also the host of the Optimal Finance Daily podcast, where she shares daily wisdom from top financial blogs. But her story is epic. She crushed $30,000 in debt in just 11 months, saved 60% of her income, negotiated a remote work sabbatical so that she could walk 500 miles across Spain and turn in financial freedom into reality. Well, we have heard enough. Let's get this show started. Hit the music.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have it all financially? Do well-off parents simply hand their children money? Or is there more to this wealth thing? Welcome to Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast. We are here to talk about everything you never knew to teach your children when it comes to starting their financial future. The principles behind wealth and methods that are out there to teach your child about personal financial freedom. There is no real trick to earning other than learning. We are here to discuss, teach, and grow with you. Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast, with your host and concerned parent, Eric Yard. Let us get right into today's show.
Let's take the temperature and see how financial literacy is today. Let's see how Dan feels on how and where it's moving and where it can go from here.
I think more transparent conversations, probably like this. You know, money is a pretty taboo topic that people feel mostly uncomfortable talking about. So I think the more willing people are to be transparent about money, how they're dealing with money, I think the more open people will be to learning about this stuff, talking about this stuff, seeing how important it is in, you know, our everyday lives.
Right. Yeah, definitely talking about it. And I think definitely gracing it every day, talking about it every day and doing action steps every day is definitely something. On the other hand now, how can a parent, in your opinion, introduce it to their child?
I think you lead by example. You know, obviously you should talk to your kids about money, but I think kids are really receptive to seeing how you operate. Like thinking even just growing up, you know, I remember being in the car with my mom as like a very little kid. And I just always saw her like go to the ATM and she'd take out like $200 at a time. And this was just kind of like a really normal task, right? An ordinary day-to-day thing. Just go to the ATM, take out $200. But she never like explained anything to me. We never talked about it. She never helped me understand like, where is that money coming from? How am I being responsible with it? You know, how it relates to earning and spending and saving and investing.
Right.
It was just, there's this machine in the wall that gives you money. Like money grows on trees, you know? And so I think, you know, kids are very observant. And so if you can kind of lead by example, but then also find those key moments to educate so that they have some context for what they're seeing, I think could be really helpful.
Now, let's shed a little thought on this. What if your child could start retirement at an early age? I'm not talking about Social Security or some type of IRA. I'm talking about a method or a style of living which would aggressively contribute to your child's retirement. Now, if you haven't heard of the FIRE movement, you're about to hear from Diane herself. But I want you to see this as a method that you can take and mold and meld into something that your child can in their lifestyle.
Yeah. So FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. And it's basically a lifestyle movement of people pursuing financial freedom in like a pretty aggressive way, right? One of the things that the FIRE movement is known for is people saving and investing very large percentages of their income. I think that's one of the things that really differentiates the movement from just like general personal finance or financial literacy. So, for example, if you worked with a financial planner, they'd probably tell you to save anywhere from 10 to 20% of your income. People pursuing financial independence or FIRE will typically save 50% or more of their income. And the basis behind that is, we're doing everything that anyone would need to do to retire at any age. We're just kind of being a bit aggressive about it.
Right.
So with that higher savings rate or investing rate, you're just simply able to reach financial freedom, financial independence, the option of retiring early, much earlier in life. And so I think the way to explain it to young people is that the more that you save and invest, the more options you create for yourself. One of those options being retiring early, if that's of interest, right? Some people don't have a desire to retire early, or they don't really understand the appeal of that. Like they like working, they like effort, they like, creating things, and they don't really see the appeal because they think retirement is just sitting around and doing nothing. Whereas I think the FIRE movement is really kind of changing that definition of retirement to more a work optional type of lifestyle, where it doesn't necessarily mean not working. It means not having to work. And there's a totally different flavor to work when you're not forced to do it for your livelihood. So I think it's more about showing kids like the opportunity there. I like to describe it as I have front loaded my retirement savings. So when I was making a really, good income in corporate America, I was saving 60% of my income, and I was fully funding my retirement vehicles. Now, a lot of young people would think, well, okay, retirement is at 65, so what do I care about doing it now? But for me, by front loading my retirement savings, I was able to quit my corporate career and do work that I find really meaningful that doesn't necessarily pay as much, and basically work less and have a lot more time in my life now versus waiting until 65 to do that. So again, I think it's really just explaining that you're creating options by giving yourself that financial bandwidth where you don't necessarily have to work.
Right. And I think it's those options is what is really missing out there. The child is not exposed to all the options in this box, basically set by society and by the school system itself, and they think that that's it. I think you hit it on the button there. Just giving them that option, letting them know about FIRE and other ways to invest and save and budget in order to be financially free in the future is something that should be given to every child out there. And I think at this moment, it's pretty much lost. But with people like you and other people in this on this same page, we are definitely making strong strides into letting them know about it. Now, what made you start on your journey for FIRE and the starting of EconoMe?
So I think like most people that kind of clean up their finances, most of us have to experience some kind of financial pain in order for us to kind of wake up and try to figure out our money situation, right? And so for me, I would describe my 20s as like I was completely financially illiterate. I didn't know anything about money. I had this assumption, which I think a lot of young people do, that I just needed to focus on increasing my income. If I could make a 6-figure salary, I would be okay. I would be financially fine, right? Is kind of the perception that I had in my younger years. And so through my 20s, I was racking up credit card debt. I had some student loans. I was, living in New York City, climbing the corporate ladder, definitely living beyond my means and just swiping that credit card. And in my head, I had thought, well, one day I'm going to be making so much money, I'll deal with my debt and figure out investing when I'm making more money. It's a terrible financial strategy, needless to say. So I find myself at 28 years old. I'm approaching my 30th birthday, which I think for many of us is a pretty reflective birthday. Like, what am I doing with my life? And, I had this goal of reaching that 6-figure salary before 30, which I did. And I still had a negative net worth because of all the debt.
Right.
And just simply not paying attention. And so I had this goal to get out of debt because I wanted to walk the Camino for my 30th birthday, which is the Camino de Santiago. It is a 500-mile trek across Spain. And so I wanted to, take 2 months off of work to go have this incredible life experience.
Wow.
But I knew in order for me to actually do that, because I didn't think that my, company would give me the time off, I thought I was going to have to quit. I wanted to get out of debt and save as much money as possible to allow me to go on this adventure. And so in that pursuit, that desire to go walk the Camino, I started digging into how do I fix my finances? And most things that I read about getting out of debt and saving money, it just had this tone of struggle to it. Like, this is going to be hard. This is going to feel like deprivation. This is going to require discipline and willpower. And everything I read was just a real downer, And so ultimately, I stumbled on the Mr. Money Mustache blog. And I like to describe finding this blog, which is the most popular within the FIRE movement, as like this refreshing punch in the face.
Right.
Because I had never heard anyone talk about money the way that this author had. And it helped me realize that I was actually really wasting my privilege. I was making a good income and I was just simply not paying attention to my spending. For so long, I thought I had an income problem, that I just need to make more money and that's what's going to fix this, which for a lot of people, that is the case for them. They really do need to increase their income. But for me, it wasn't about income. It was about wasteful spending. And so once I understood that and I really started to get interested in money management much more than increasing my income, it completely turned it around. So I ended up getting out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months simply by changing my mindset and not being so wasteful and finding almost a resourcefulness and creativity in getting my needs met that didn't necessarily require a lot of money.
How about that?
And so yeah, from there, from getting out of 30 grand of debt, I started saving and investing about 60% of my income. And I did that for about 5 years. And that put me in this financial position where I was able to quit my corporate job and pursue self-employment and entrepreneurial pursuits and things that are a lot more risky, but I'm in the financial position to take that risk, which I think a lot of people don't put themselves in that position, which is why I talk about it so much.
Did you embrace it, this FIRE movement, once you started on it to whittle down your debt?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I love about the FIRE movement is there's almost an abundance mindset there. There's not, like I talked about this like kind of tone of this is going to be a struggle. This is going to feel like deprivation. I think a lot of the content in the FIRE movement talks about kind of almost appreciating the material abundance you already have and kind of curbing your desire for more, right? I think societal norms, and I like to say that we have been trained since birth to be consumers.
That is correct.
We always want more, like the newest car, the newest phone, the nicest possessions, right?
Yep.
And so I think when you really start to question that, and understand like the concept of the hedonic treadmill, right? Like, yeah, you get a dopamine hit when you buy some material possession, but that's not going to last very long. A much more sustainable, form of abundance and happiness is almost like full autonomy over your time, the ability to create what you want to see in the world, the ability to spend a lot of time with your friends and family and be able to work less. That is a form of wealth that when we think of rich people, we think of the big house and the fancy car. We don't think of an abundance of time to do whatever you want. And so once I kind of wrapped my head around that, it was like, ooh, I want that.
Diane has brought up a lot of good points, but one of the points that she did bring up is that we are bred to be consumers, and the same thing is happening to our children. So as a parent, at what point do you say enough is enough and we start teaching our children the other side of that coin? We as humans are being advertised to on all platforms, well, almost all platforms of life. And your children are a part of that too, which they are the most impressionable. So now the parents must step in and engage with the children and let them know that they have other options. Now, trying to learn the FIRE movement open up more avenues to different type of skills that you could apply to your life. Skills that you did not know or was planning to use. And for your children, it will open up more avenues in life, which they can add to their tool belt.
Well, I think that, I really focused on reducing my expenses from the get-go. And so I really focused on the big three, which is housing, transportation, and food. When it comes to food, I got really good at cooking. I love cooking. I cook almost every meal that I eat, to the point where when I do go out to eat, it's like, oh man, I could have made something better than this. So I absolutely love that. I think that skill and actually being able to enjoy it. I know a lot of people don't like cooking, which I think is a shame because it's such an amazing way to save money, but also kind of scratch a creative itch because you're creating a meal. It's not just some task like washing the dishes. Right. You actually get to create something. And to me, feeding my family is one of my greatest sources of joy. And it just so happens to save me a lot of money as well. So that's a skill set that I'm super grateful for. I'd also say just kind of thinking outside the box, the desire to decrease my expenses just opened up a world of creativity for me, because I think we get so used to if I have a need or a perceived need, I'm just going to swipe that credit card and buy the new clothing or buy the new thing that I think I need. And when I was trying to reduce my expenses, it kind of forced me to slow down and say, do I really need this? Is there another way to get this need met? Can I borrow something from someone? Building community has been a huge aspect to my path to financial independence. And so, I have a community of people where we share and we, share resources with each other, which is huge. So, for example, something as simple as clothing, which I've never been a huge shopper. I actually hate shopping. So buying a lot of clothing has never really been my issue. But we all need to clothe ourselves, right? And so to solve this need, I started hosting clothing exchanges with my friends because I realized I had friends that really enjoyed shopping. They had closets full of clothes that they never wear. And so we would all get together at my apartment for an afternoon of mimosas and music and just trying on each other's clothes. And I would leave those clothing exchanges with a closet full of free, more fashionable clothing than I would have bought on my own. And so that's just one example of resourcefulness where you're getting a need met in a frugal way, but I would also argue that way was a lot more satisfying than just going shopping and swiping a credit card. So I think it's kind of pushing yourself to be a little bit more creative.
On your journey, what would you say is the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
I'd say just changing habits. Changing habits is hard, right? And a lot of our spending habits, especially when we get into adulthood, it's like they become ingrained. And so I think the biggest challenge is, again, just kind of slowing down and questioning assumptions, which takes a lot of work, right?
Right.
To be really mindful about this stuff. A lot of us are moving so fast because our days are so full. We're so busy with work, like to find the time and space to be thoughtful,
Right.
Can be a huge challenge.
Now, as you just heard, habits are hard to break, whether it's good or bad. So here at Raising Financial Freedom and at Nurturing Finance, this is what we talk about all the time. This is what is our creed, which is have the parents to teach their children financial literacy from a very young age, so it's installed, so it's their foundation for when they reach adulthood. We would like it even better if the children had Finlit reflex, to the point where financial literacy is instinctual. It's like a reflex. Practice every day, all the time. Now, do you have kids?
I have a stepson.
You have a stepson. Okay. So now tell me, in your opinion, how would you cultivate the mindset of fire into a child?
I mean, really, it's leading by example, right? I mean, he has his dad, he has his mom, he has his stepdad. They all work regular 9-to-5 W-2 jobs. I'm the only person in his life that I don't have like a real job. I like to say that I'm like fun employed, right? And so at any time, like, I don't have to take time off of work if he needs something at school, or, I have ultimate flexibility over my schedule. And I think he can notice that, right? He can see that. I mean, even just yesterday, we've got these 2 little kittens and one of them was sick, and I wanted to get her to the vet because I was pretty concerned. And I was able to just get a last minute vet appointment at the time that was convenient for me, and I didn't have to talk to anyone about it, and I could just get it handled. I think kids really notice that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Has he asked you any particular questions about fire the way?
He is very interested in the EconoMe Conference, which is an event that I produce about financial independence. I think he's a little too young to fully wrap his head around it. But for example, he's seen my little highlight reel from the last event, and he knows that his dad created the whole stage design, and he built this custom bookshelf for us. And, we talk a lot about the stuff we're creating around EconoMe. It's a very, it's a creative pursuit, and so he hears a lot about that stuff. And so I remember one day I was making dinner, and I actually make my own mayo. It's super simple to do if you have an immersion blender.
Right.
And he likes to call it magic mayo. And so, I show him how to put it all together, and I whipped it up and it turns into mayo, and it's, magical thing. And the first thing he says is, "You're going to show people how to do this at EconoMe, right?" And I was like, I thought about it, and I was like, well, cooking is about saving money, and I guess it kind of fits and makes sense, and to kind of do things like this, at home. And so, yeah, I maybe we should show people at EconoMe how to make their own mayo. So it's kind of little things like that he puts together that, again, he's a little bit too young, but he definitely has a lot of curiosity around it.
When did you realize you had a passion for fire? And
I would say when I found the Mr. Money Mustache blog. I mean, I think the first article I came across was "Your Debt is an Emergency." I believe that's the title of it. And it talks about why you should feel like your hair is on fire. And that really kind of woke me up. And I just became obsessed with that blog. I mean, I read nearly every article, and it's almost like the daily repetition of hearing another perspective about money that was completely at odds with my social conditioning. I almost needed to it feels almost like my whole life I was brainwashed to be a consumer. And so I needed to brainwash myself in the opposite direction. And so that's why I really think, when you start going down the rabbit hole, daily reading is just super helpful in helping to change your mindset. Like, yeah, you can read one book, you could read one blog article, but that's not likely to change your ingrained kind of habits and mindset. I think you really have to work at that daily.
Right. Why do you think that the FIRE movement is so highly criticized and
well, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it.
I think so,
right?
too.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, there's this kind of, I think, misunderstanding of what retirement is. Like, why would you want to just stop working and sit around and do nothing all day? It's like, do we aspire to just sit down? No, I think we aspire to create options. And most people that I know that have retired very young have gone on to create businesses, travel the world, dig really deeply into hobbies that they hadn't had the time to do before. So I think there's that misconception of what retirement really is. I think that there is this idea of like, what are you, crazy? You're going to run out of money. If you listen to like a Susie Orman, for example, she thinks you need $10 million to retire. Many people in the FIRE movement are retiring on $1 million. And so there's kind of that, I guess, criticism that like, this is unrealistic. You're going to run out of money. There's risk to this, that it sounds good in theory, but it's not going to work over the long run. A lot of people will criticize like me in particular. I have a stepson, but I don't have kids of my own, and so it's like, well, you've been able to do this because you made a high salary and you didn't have kids. But as someone that's pretty ingrained in the community, I feel like I'm the abnormal one, right? Most people that I meet within the FIRE movement are doing this because they have kids. And a big motivation for them is to spend more time with their kids. Or they want to have kids and they just don't think it's feasible to do so, with working full time and not having support on childcare and all that kind of stuff. So I think that there is criticism of the movement because what you see of the movement are the popular bloggers. And there's kind of that, a lot of the popular bloggers made high incomes. They're white privileged men that worked in, tech. And so there's a lot of criticism around, well, this doesn't apply to, just normal everyday people making a smaller income. But I'll tell you, like, it's been incredible meeting the people in this movement that do not fit into that description. So, for example, the most popular speech from the EconoMe Conference is a woman named Jackie Cummings-Koski. She lives in Dayton, Ohio. She never made six figures. She was a single Black mother who found the movement at 38 years old, and she retired at 49. She did it in 10 years on less than six figures. And so she actually opened up the books and showed everyone her numbers and showed everyone, how she was able to do this and how possible it really is. And so I think we need more of that to kind of get around some of these misconceptions around what is, like, who this is even for and how possible this even is to do. Most people who are doing this are not writing blogs about it. So you just don't know their experience.
Right. So as you just heard, almost at any age, a method can be implemented and goals achieved. But some people would say, hey, practicing FIRE, you have to be a little bit too frugal in order to achieve your goals, which is not necessarily the case. Being frugal has levels to it, which applies to certain people at certain times of their lives. Introducing the Dollars and Cents Bundle. This isn't just another boring financial guide. It's your secret weapon for raising financially smart kids. Inside this bundle, you'll get 3 powerful tools to make money lessons a breeze. First up, a kid-friendly budget sheet. It's the perfect way to help your child track their money, build healthy habits, and get hands-on experience managing their earnings. Next, you'll unlock the guide, Money Mavericks. bite-sized wisdom for busy parents. Think of it as your quick start playbook, packed with expert-backed tips to help you teach your kids about saving, spending, and everything in between. And finally, there's my favorite part, interactive digital flashcards. These are perfect for teaching core money concepts in a way that's fun, engaging, and memorable for the whole family. Here's the best part. The dollars and cents bundle is completely free. Yep, free. All you have to do is sign up and the tools are yours, delivered straight to your inbox. You owe it to your kids to give them the skills they need to succeed in life. The dollars and cents bundle makes it simple, fun, and totally doable, no matter how busy you are. So what are you waiting for? Make financial literacy a family adventure. Head over to show notes right now to grab your free dollars and cents bundle link, or go to nurturingfinance.com and subscribe. Don't wait. Start your family's financial journey today.
Frugality is really relative, right? If you make a really high salary, let's say you're making 500 grand a year, what's frugal to you is going to probably look like a pretty lavish lifestyle for someone making a much lower income, right? It's all relative. I don't know that the FIRE movement even agrees on frugality. There's a whole segment of the FIRE movement called Fat FIRE, where people don't want to live frugally. They want to live a lavish lifestyle. And so they're retiring on, $2 to $5 million versus $1 million. I think there's a lot of different flavors of FIRE, I guess you can say. So I don't know that we agree on frugality. I think the only thing we agree on is to spend less than you earn. And that the metric of focus is the gap between your income and your expenses. And it's about growing that gap. And so for some people that make a really high income, that doesn't require frugality to be able to have a big gap between your income and your expenses. I think it's all situational. For me, frugality is a big part of it, not just because of saving money, but because I've found that a minimalist, simplistic life has really facilitated personal development for me. So when I think about how I used to spend money, I used to waste so much money on going out, right? That was my big thing in New York. I had my 20s, right? I was constantly going out to eat every night, going out partying with my friends and really spending a lot of money on that. So to kind of turn that on its head and decide to not spend money on that and spend more time alone doing things like journaling and reading and hiking and, cooking and do just those kind of natural personal development type practices has really simplified my life. It's reduced my expenses, but it's led to a whole lot of personal development for me. So that's kind of, I think, what I focus on when I think about frugality versus just saving money.
What is the best thing that's happened to you since you've started on this journey?
Being able to quit my job.
Yeah.
I quit my job about over a year ago now. And just having the financial bandwidth to take a huge risk, not only in quitting my job, but in starting this conference. I started it because I had asked myself, what would I do with my time if I was actually financially independent and I didn't have to worry about making money? What would I want to create? And I decided I wanted to create a party about money because I love going to events. I love going to conferences and trade shows. I'm a really extroverted person. And, there's a big online community when it comes to the FIRE movement, but I just do not do well interacting online. It's just not my thing. I don't want to, it's hard for me to form relationships through a screen. I want to see people in person. And so I saw a great opportunity to do that for this community. But having the financial bandwidth to kind of take a big risk, I took a 40 grand loss on my first year of my business. And that's a lot of money for someone who is very conscious of saving and investing my money. To take that huge loss was it was a real growth moment for me, because I was able to see that even with that loss, I still fully funded my retirement vehicles. I still was able to save a lot of money because my savings rate was 60%. I was still able to meet all of my needs, even with that huge loss. I mean, that's such a privilege to lose that amount of money and not even feel it in my day-to-day life. So yeah, I would say the best thing that's happened is, being able to create a business, quit my job, and kind of work on my own terms.
So what is the best piece of advice you could give any parent out there looking to trying to start with FIRE and trying to be successful with it?
I would say let your curiosity be bigger than your fear. I just know so many people that when they're first getting started, kind of cleaning up their finances and really wanting to dig into this stuff, it's scary to kind of face the music and look at the reality of your situation. But the only way you can come up with a plan is to look at where you stand today and kind of how you got here. So there's a lot of fear around that because many of us feel a lot of shame around our money and our irresponsible spending and, maybe perceived mistakes we've made in the past. But I think if you can get more curious, it opens the door to kind of get beyond the fear and give you the ability to look at the reality of your situation.
That definitely is good. Now, let us know where we possibly continue this conversation with you. And Diane, let us know what future projects you have coming up in the future.
Cool. Well, like I said, I produced the EconoMe Conference. This is kind of like the TED Talks of the FIRE movement. It's also been described as a party about money, which is definitely the tone I was going for. And so you can head over to YouTube. The EconoMe Conference YouTube channel has videos of all the main stage speeches from our last events. And EconoMe is spelled with an M-E, not an M-Y, because I'm so clever. So you can head over there and kind of check out those speeches. You can also go to economeconference.com and sign up for my mailing list. The next event is actually scheduled for exactly a year from when we're recording this. So we are a year away from the next event. It will be March 17th through 19th and ticket sales are opening up in just a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in attending the conference, you can, certainly join us. It's a ton of fun. And I'm also the host of a pretty popular podcast called Optimal Finance Daily. And this is a daily show. It's a narration style podcast where I'm reading you posts from personal finance bloggers and then offering like a tiny bit of commentary at the end. So it's every single day, 10 minutes or less. And it's a great way to kind of get a small dose of personal finance content every day to kind of keep it top of mind.
Diana, thank you once again for coming on the show. And we will definitely look out for everything EconoMe.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Diane for coming on the show and showing us so many ways that the FIRE movement can be molded or melded into your own type of financial literacy that could taught to your kids or family members. Once again, you can find Diana at the EconoMe Conference and at the Optimal Finance Daily podcast. Now, what I would like for you to do is share this episode with other friends, family, co-workers, and give this episode a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this episode. Last but not least, check us out on our main site, nurturingfinance.com. Once again, thank you for listening and start early so your children can thrive forever.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast. Stay connected with us directly through raisingfinancialfreedom.com. You can also join the discussion on social media, which you can also find links on our website. If you would like to speak with us, please send us an email through info@raisingfinancialfreedom.com. And as always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to please like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
Before you go, I wanted to tell you about a new option called Fan Mail, which uses text messaging to give our listeners the ability to text our show directly. There is a link in every episode at the top that will say, "Send us a text." You can use that link to text the show. When a listener clicks the link in our episode description, a new text message will open on your device directly to the show. It's that easy. So tell me what you think, what else you want to hear out of the show, or simply your thoughts on that episode you just heard.